My hand was shaking so hard I could barely hold the paper cup of coffee the technician had given me. "Ma'am," he said, not looking up from the monitor, his voice flat in a way that scared me more than shouting would have. "Leave right now. Go somewhere public. Don't go home." I looked at the screen behind him, at the frozen frame of my own backyard, my own patio furniture, my own life, and at the two people standing in it who were never supposed to be there. "What did you find?" I whispered. He turned the monitor away from me. "You need to call someone before I show you this," he said. "Someone who isn't in this footage. My name is Diane Kessler. I'm 63 years old, and for 31 years, I ran Kessler and Associates, a small accounting firm out of a converted house on Maple Street that I built from a single client, my own dentist, into a practice that employed 11 people and served over 400 small businesses across the county. I sold it 2 years ago for $2.1 million, not because I wanted to, because my hands had started shaking too much to trust my own numbers. And I'd rather walk away with dignity than be the accountant who made the mistake. Everyone whispered about that money, plus the house I paid off in 2019, plus $340,000 in retirement accounts, made me for the first time in my life comfortable, not rich, comfortable enough to help my son Marcus, 34, and his wife Renata, 31, with the down payment on their house, enough to pay for my granddaughter Lily's dance lessons, enough to sleep at night. I thought that comfort was safe. I thought my family was safe. I was wrong about both. It started on a Tuesday in March at what should have been an unremarkable family dinner. Renata came to the table in a blouse I recognized, silk, cream-colored with small pearl buttons, because I'd seen it in a boutique window downtown with a price tag of $480. She wore it the way people wear things they want noticed, smoothing the fabric at her waist twice before she even sat down. Marcus poured wine, not the $12 bottle we usually had on Tuesdays, a Bordeaux, the label facing out, like a small announcement. "Big week?" I asked, keeping my tone light. Renata smiled at Marcus first, then at me. "Just treating ourselves," she said. "You only live once, right, Diane?" She'd started calling me Diane 6 months earlier. "Never, Mom. Never even Diane. Is that okay?" "Just Diane," dropped in his senses like a small precise correction, a reminder that I was not and would never be the kind of mother-in-law who got the warmer name. I didn't say anything. I just watched Marcus avoid my eyes and refill his glass a little too fast. That night, driving home, I did the math I'd done professionally for 3 decades. Marcus made $71.00 a year as a project manager. Renata worked part-time at a marketing firm, maybe $28,000, between the mortgage I'd helped with, 2 car payments, and Lily's private school tuition. Their numbers didn't come close to matching a $480 blouse and a $95 bottle of wine on a Tuesday. Something was funding a life they couldn't afford. And 3 weeks later, I'd find out what I still had access to: a joint family emergency fund account I'd set up years earlier. $50,000 I contributed to Virginia Emergencies with Marcus as co-signer for convenience. I rarely checked it. That week, something made me look. $31,400 had been withdrawn over 4 months. Cash withdrawals, transfers to an account I didn't recognize. I called Marcus, kept my voice light, almost apologetic. "Hey, sweetheart, I noticed some withdrawals on the emergency account. Probably just me forgetting something, but can you walk me through it?" He didn't miss a beat. "Oh, that. Renata's been consulting on the side, doing some independent contractor work, and there were some upfront licensing and certification fees. Plus, we had to cover a gap while her invoice is processed. It's all going to pay itself back once her contract's finalized. Totally normal in the consulting world. Mom, cash flow lag is standard." It was fluent, confident, the kind of answer designed to make a woman in her 60s feel foolish for asking. I said, "Oh, of course that makes sense," and thanked him for explaining. Then I hired a private investigator. 2 weeks later, I sat across from a woman named Priya on and in a coffee shop, and she slid a manila folder across the table. There was no consulting business. There was no LLC, no no invoices, no clients. The $31,400 had gone toward a leased BMW X5, a Cancun trip for Marcus, Renata, and another couple, and strangely, 3 separate payments to a company called Bellwood Property Holdings. Bellwood, Prior said, is a shell company. I traced the registered agent. It leads back to a residential address. She turned the paper round. It was my address. I didn't confront them yet. I wanted to understand what Bellwood Property Holdings meant before I moved. So, the following Sunday, when I came over to drop off cookies for Lily, I let myself in through the side door, the one that opened near the kitchen without triggering the front bell, and I heard them before they saw me. She's not going to notice, Renata was saying, laughing, ice clinking in a glass. She barely checks anything anymore. Did you see her hands shaking at dinner? She can't even hold a fork steady. In 2 years, she won't remember what year it is, let alone what's in some account. Marcus's laugh was quieter, almost guilty, but he didn't correct her. She trusts me, he said. Signed power of attorney paperwork years ago, remember, for just in case. We just need her to sign one more thing and Bellwood owns the house outright. Then it's ours to refinance, sell, whatever we want, and she never has to know until it's done. I stood in that kitchen doorway with a tray of cookies going cold in my hand, and I felt something in my chest go very, very still. I went home and pulled every document I'd signed in the last 3 years, buried in a stack from 18 months earlier, mixed in with legitimate tax paperwork Marcus had helped me organize after my hand trimmer made filing difficult. Was a durable power of attorney notarized, granting Marcus broad authority over my financial and property decisions. I didn't remember signing anything that broad. I remembered signing something Marcus described as just so I can help you with bills if your hands act up. That's not what this document said. I called the notary listed on the form. Her name was Carla D. Jace. When I described the situation, there was a long pause. Ma'am, she said carefully, I don't recognize your name from my log for that date. I'll need to check my records. 2 days later, she called back, her voice tight. I have no record of notarizing that document. My seal number was used, but I did not witness that signature. The power of attorney was forged. I asked Priya to dig deeper into Bellwood Property Holdings. What she found stopped me cold. Bellwood wasn't just a shell for stealing my house. It had already taken out $180,000 home equity line of credit against my property 6 weeks earlier using the forged power of attorney as authorization. The funds had been transferred to Bellwood's account, then split, some to Marcus and Renata's personal accounts, some $60,000 of it to a man named Todd Whitmore. Todd Whitmore, it turned out, was Renata's brother, a man with 2 prior fraud-adjacent civil judgments against him in another state. This wasn't a couple living slightly beyond their means. This was a coordinated plan to strip $180,000 of equity from my home using a forged legal document, funneling money to a relative with a history of financial schemes, while calling me Diane over Bordeaux and joking that I wouldn't notice because my hands show. Okay, I had every piece of evidence I needed to go to the police immediately. I didn't because paperwork gets contested, because Marcus could claim confusion, claim I'd verbally authorized things I'd forgot, claim my declining faculties made my own testimony unreliable. The same lie they were already telling themselves about me. I needed something they couldn't argue with. I needed them on record in their own voices admitting intent. So I decided to give them exactly what they thought they already had. A fragile old woman. I started forgetting things on purpose. Small things at first, repeating a question I just asked, calling Lily by my sister's name, and correcting myself with visible confusion. I let my hand trimmer become the center of every visit, holding cups with both hands, apologizing for spilling things I hadn't spilled. I bought a cane I didn't need and used it inconsistently, dramatic in front of them, forgotten when I thought I was alone, so our NA would notice the gaps and feel clever for noticing. Inside, I was sharper than I'd been in years. Every performance was a calculation. I never rushed people who believed they were getting away with something. The more confident they became, the more careless they acted. Greed has a way of making people reckless, and reckless people almost always reveal more than they ever intended. One quiet Sunday afternoon, I looked over at Marcus with the most uncertain expression I could manage. "Marcus, sweetheart," I said softly, "I keep feeling like I signed some paperwork recently. I honestly can't remember what it was. Was it anything important?" The relief that crossed his face was impossible to miss. His shoulders relaxed, and a smile appeared almost instantly. "No, Mom," he answered gently. "It's nothing serious, just routine paperwork. You don't have to worry about any of it." I nodded, as though his explanation settled my concerns. "That's good," I whispered. "My memory just isn't what it used to be," and sighed. I was completely alert. He believed I was becoming forgetful. He believed I could no longer separate truth from fiction. That false confidence was exactly what I needed. After hearing enough suspicious conversations over the previous weeks, I decided it was time to stop guessing and start collecting proof. Following the neighborhood burglary that had taken place only a couple of streets away, I announced that I wanted to improve my home's security. It sounded perfectly reasonable. Nobody questioned an older homeowner wanting extra protection after hearing about a nearby break-in. Marcus even offered to help. Together we looked through different security camera systems online. He proudly recommended one with excellent video quality and remote access. "You've always been surprisingly good with technology," he joked with a laugh. "Most people your age wouldn't even know where to start." I smiled politely. If only he knew. The cameras were installed on my backyard patio, the kitchen window, and every entrance where private conversations often happen. More importantly, every recording was automatically uploaded to a secure cloud account that only I and my attorney knew existed. Nothing could be erased. Nothing could mysteriously disappear. Every word would remain safely stored. At the same time, Detective Priya helped me prepare another piece of the puzzle. My attorney drafted what looked like an official trust document. At first glance, it appeared completely authentic. It listed Marcus as the sole beneficiary of my home and suggested ownership would transfer immediately after my signature. The paper looked genuine. The letterhead was genuine. The formatting was perfect, but legally, it meant absolutely nothing. It had been created for one purpose only: to tempt people who believed they had already won. The document was never intended to be filed with any court or government office. It existed solely to reveal who would try to use it. On Thursday morning, I casually placed the papers on my kitchen counter before leaving the room. Thursday was important. Renata always stopped by on Thursdays while Marcus was still working. I didn't mention the papers. I simply waited. That evening I sat quietly in my favorite reading chair with an open novel resting in my lap. I never turned a single page. My attention stayed on my phone lying beside me. Every few minutes it vibrated with another motion notification from the backyard. Cameras. Someone walked past. Someone entered. Someone lingered. I watched each alert appear without making a sound. Around 6:40 that evening, another notification arrived. This one lasted much longer than the others. The camera had detected people standing together instead of simply passing through. More importantly, it had captured audio. I resisted every temptation to play it immediately. Evidence is often stronger when people believe nobody is listening. Instead, I continued living exactly as before. I smiled during family dinners. I answered phone calls. I accepted visits. I played the role everyone expected from me. Meanwhile, the recordings continued building themselves day after day. I gave the trap time to work. 2 full weeks passed before I finally reviewed everything. The patience paid off beyond anything I had imagined. The fake trust document had become the center of conversations my cameras had captured perfectly. Renata's voice came through crystal clear. I already convinced her she signed it. She laughed. "If she questions anything later, we'll just tell her she's forgetting again." Marcus chuckled. "No one's going to believe her anyway." Renata answered without hesitation. "Exactly. If she can't even remember simple things, who's going to believe anything she says?" The words settled over me like ice. Not because they surprised me, because hearing them removed every last excuse I had been making for them. There was no misunderstanding misunderstanding, no confusion, no accident. This wasn't concern for an aging mother. It was a carefully planned scheme built on the belief that everyone would dismiss my voice before they ever questioned theirs. Another recording captured Marcus speaking confidently with his wife while they stood on my own backyard patio. Once the trust goes through, he said, we'll sell the house within 6 months. Renata asked if everything was already arranged. Marcus sounded almost proud. Todd has a buyer waiting. Mom won't even realize what's happening until she's already living in assisted care. By then, it'll all be finished. I listened to those words several times, not because I doubted what I'd heard, because every replay reminded me why I couldn't let emotion interfere with what had to happen next. The people I loved had mistaken kindness for weakness. They believed age had stolen my judgment. They thought calling me confused would be enough to silence me forever. They had no idea I was quietly documenting every lie, every plan, and every conversation they believed no one else would ever hear. And with every new recording, the truth became impossible to deny.